live streaming and the recordment, and then we'll make the statement.
Recording in progress.
Make the statement so that the meeting is being recorded and it'll be available online later on. If you're not happy with it, please leave the meeting now. Thank you. There we go. Welcome to you all to the authorities meeting. Are there any apologies? Anybody apologize? Delwyn Roberts. Right. So, well, to start, I'd like to welcome Delyth Lloyd-Griffiths to the first meeting of the authority. I hope you'll be happy with us in our company. And she's taken June Jones's place. So I will be sending June a letter thanking her for all the work she did. I think she's been for 2 terms, I think. So I'd just like to propose that we send a letter. Would anyone like to second that? You okay? Thank you. You've received an email now. That there's a vacant post for the Vice Chair of Planning, and that will come up in the next planning meeting. I don't know what the date is. So that will be on the agenda on the 4th of March, yes. So to be the first item on the agenda. There's a form with it, so if you'd like to nominate someone, if you could send the form in that you've received back to Avian. And if there's more than one, we'll take a vote on it. Thank you. We're looking at 2 new members from the Welsh Government. I hope that they'll join us quite soon. And I was at the meeting, and myself and the Chief Executive, North Wales Ambition project, we got a seat on the Transport Board. So there we have it there. So we move on to Jonathan. Okay, thank you. Just to confirm that we're on the transport, we don't have a vote on the Transport Committee. We do have on the planning. We're just there to listen and contribute, but we can't vote on any matters. I've got quite a few things here. Maybe in the future, it'd be better to put it out as an update, but this is just an update on everything. It's going to be an oral update, really. I'll go through them as quick as I can. Following the last meeting, quite a few things have happened. At the end of November, we launched. We had the launch in the Welsh Government, the Senedd, on the Celtic Rainforest. The League for the Celtic Rainforest. It was a very successful meeting. We're a co-partner there, and getting the project manager presented an update. The government secretary there and quite a few of the members of the Senedd. So it was a worthwhile event, and his was there as well. Just on Eryri, we made a press release following the decision at the last authority meeting, and that was received very positively in the local press. It was almost all positive feedback in the British newspapers. It was more neutral, and a few comments on social media were a little bit more mixed, but we expected that. But overall, it was very positive. And an update on Jason Diamond's secondment. Maybe you've heard me talking about Jason before. He's an inspector with North Wales Police. Was seconded to the park last year, which was very successful. and in several areas, but you're working mostly on transport. And Jason has received an extension. We're very pleased to see for this next year. So we're very happy with that. We've also received a draft budget from the Welsh Government with an increase of 5% within 24, between 24, 25 and 25, 26. That's quite good news, obviously. There's a slight increase there. We're still in quite a serious situation, as Shan will talk about this later, but that budget will be confirmed next month. So we have started discussions on a budget strategies to deal with the situation we're in at the moment, and we'll bring a paper before the authority quite soon. We've had an internal session reviewing the tourism season last year. We conducted a review on that, and that was a very positive session. You may possibly be aware that the tourism tax bill is coming out. Well, the consultation just came to an end on this last year. We have contributed to that consultation, and we're working closely with Gwynedd Council and Conwy on this matter, and other councils as well. We're slightly disappointed that we don't have a direct role in this, and that has been reflected in our comments. You know, we're dependent on, we have to depend on the money to come through the county council. But we're quite fortunate we have a positive relationship with Gwynedd and Conwy councils. So we hope because of that it will be will be rolled out successfully if it comes to be. We met with Cyswllt Rhys Owen was at that meeting as well, just discussing different matters in the agriculture sector in relation to the PAC, and that was very positive. And the woodland strategy, quite a few drop-in sessions, so they're going okay, aren't they? I think, Chris? Yes.
Got a staff.
Met as a staff working group. We know as a start of we met as staff in Plas and Bulch. Everyone was there. It was a good opportunity to get everyone together, different presentations, and the chair was there as well. That was a successful session. I hope to hold that every 6 months with all members of staff. And just for your information, it's taken a bit slightly longer than expected, but the 2 directors' posts will be sent out over the coming days. The land management and planning and partnerships as well. Those 2 posts will be advertised quite soon. And as you're possibly aware, Article 4 has been approved by the Planning Committee, so that will be up and running from June onwards. And there's a planning guidance which is being consulted on over the coming months, so hopefully that guidance will be ready by the time that Article 4 is in place. And we've had confirmation on Plas and Bulch. We are continuing discussions on that matter, and we'll bring a paper to the authority in April with an update on the situation. As part of the financial work, but the income strategy is taking place, and we're working on a piece of work on the Betws y Coed Centre. We will be consulting with that. So that's something which is moving forward in a positive manner, but we'll be bringing a paper to you when things have progressed further. We had an event in Llanberis celebrating a year of Cario project where volunteers come in to gather litter, which is also it has been very successful. We reached the final round of the Dewi Sant Awards last year, so that's a worthwhile activity which is taking place, and that's it. And we're also preparing for the seminar for members of Eryri. It will be held on the 1st and 2nd of October, and we're getting arrangements in place for that. So that's it from myself. Thank you very much. So we move on to item 3. We'll move on to item 4, declarations of interest. Receive any disclosures of interest by members or officers in respect of any items of business. Anwen? Point 9, farming, Ffermio Bro. Just in case there's something comes up. Is it personal interest, is it? And myself as well. And John as well. Okay. Anyone on the screen? Eva has raised his hand, yes. So with the minutes, I would propose that the minutes of the 13th of November are correct. Would anyone like to second that? Alwyn Elia, if you could have a show of hands. Thank you very much. So matters for information raising from the minutes. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. So the action, you want to present this? This is, we're continuing. As we refer to, we're just waiting. We're in the process of sending it out to fill in these 2 posts. So we will assess the situation once we've gone through this process. Thank you very much. Is everyone happy with how things are moving on? The situation is there are 4 members, authority members, are on the local. Sarah Hatzel, we received her resignation, so there's a vacant post now. So we need 1 further person. You don't have to. I think the best thing is to appoint from the members of Welsh Government. The other members are Elwyn, Ifor and Einir. So to ensure that the balance would remain as it was before. If Elwyn has his hand up. Yes, I'm okay. So you'd like to Naomi? Like to propose Naomi. Anyone like to second Naomi? Joe has seconded that. Anyone else? So I'd like to welcome Naomi.
Now, Ffermio Bro.
So Ffermio Bro.
A gentleman farmer's wheel.
Thank you. I think, Mr. Chair. Before I start on this, I'd just like to give a quick update since, as John has referred to, the woodland strategy. We've just finished a period of consultation, external consultation, with drop-in sessions in village halls and sessions online. And I'm very pleased to say that the response has been very positive. And I think it's a testament to the way that the team have set about consulting with landowners beforehand. So there haven't been any nasty surprises included there. And the targets and the way that we set them out have been accepted very well and in a positive manner. So things are moving forward. So very happy with that. So Ffermio Bro. I just give you a background document. It's included in the package there. There's some reading work there. It's a program really, which has grown. You know, we've been asking for finance so that we can do more things over the past few years, you know, and the thing has been forthcoming. And And fair play, the Welsh Government, the landscape team have listened to us and they've worked very hard to put this in place for us. And it's a great opportunity. You know, we haven't had this revenue before in the central area. So it's a program which will work in a national level throughout all the parks and the sustainable place. It's a 3-year project. You know, it's a 3-year program, and it's a transition package. That's the term that they use, just to move farmers from where we are at the moment into the SFS plan, and specifically the highest tier of this, the collaborative layer. That won't start until 2020 now, so you've already done the sum, so you'll see that there's a year of a gap, and we have asked about that already. They're looking into it to see if they can extend it into a 4-year program. So we'll keep an eye on that to see how it develops. So it's a 1.38 million over the first year through all the areas. It's just the capital funding, so there's revenue funding on top of that. The problem has been that the revenue funding the first year hasn't been enough to be able to allow everyone to appoint an officer. So we've had to be quite creative with how we've set it up. The budget in years 2 and 3 or doubles over the years 2 and 3. So at the moment, this is the year-on-year budget, so that we will be required to spend this money and claim it back within the year, or we won't be allowed to roll any funding on to the next year. And of course, we can't put programs which extend more than a year in place, which is slightly unfortunate, but we'll have to look at the bigger picture and accept what we have been given and the opportunity it gives us to make a difference. It's been a very technical process, very challenging at times. The document first said that things aren't all exactly in place. We're still working on a number of things. I was in Aberystwyth on Friday. I've got another meeting next week, working on the mechanics, because there's quite a pressure to get it ready by the 1st of April. And as you can imagine, when you put a program like this in place, there are quite a few things to put in place. Out of interest to us, because the budget of the first year isn't enough revenue-wise, we've had to look at it in a slightly different manner. The capital budget was over 300,000 in year 1, and on top of that, Llyn and Môn of around 110. So you're talking about 500,000, over £500,000 to be spent. There's not enough money in the revenue in the system for an officer for Llyn and Môn, as we'd hoped. So what we've done, we've sat down and tried to look at it as a team and work with each other. We can find a solution. So the intention now, so in the first instance, we had funding for 1.5 officers in Eryri, and with the Team Rheoli's permission, I'll be able to refer that. I've got one officer on a sabbatical period in Dubai, and she's asked for an extension on that. And the Team Rheoli have approved that. So the intention is to use part of that post funding to top up the 1.5 posts, which was proposed to the revenue given by Welsh Government, to have 2 posts, full-time posts in Eryri. Having seen that, Llyn and Môn have looked at the possibility of working together. So they're pooling their resources, which gives them about £42,000 of revenue funding, and then got to top up the difference, which is 4,000 or 5,000, so that they can have 1 full-time officer in post for both areas. But we'll be guesting and recruiting centrally in Eryri, so that we'll have 3 posts set up together, rather than competing against each other and looking at, we're going to look at it as a team delivery. And then the 4th post officer will will arrive in year 2 and 3, hopefully. So that gives us some flexibility then. You know, if somebody from Anglesey or Penllyn has tried for the post, we hope with some common sense that you'd hope really that they would be interested then in concentrating on continuing the work in Anglesey and Penllyn for year 2 and 3. You know, we'll have to work it out with Gwynedd and Mons to ensure that we ensure that what they expect from us and what their expectations are on the level of service, and then if there are any financial implications, that we don't carry the load for that. We've worked very well with Mon and Llyn. We've worked with the Dark Skies project and on the sustainable landscapes packages as well as sustainable places. So we've got a history of working with them. We've got a good relationship with officers. So it should be okay. It's Siwan has got hold of a draft demo method or use. So we should be able to move forward in that quite quickly. The posts have been they paid on the Welsh Government's grades. So we've had to check that they fit into the structure, the local structure, so there are no inconsistencies between our members of staff. And that's been working okay. We're quite happy with that. Now, the Welsh language assessment is being carried out this morning. Bethan's doing that and they'll check it. So hopefully with your permission, we can start the recruitment process over the next few weeks. And the intention is to interview before the end of March, by the end of February, start of March, and everyone has a notice period that they need to give, that we'll have the staff in place to start in April. So, you know, it's tight as a schedule, but we can hit the ground running then on the 1st of April. I've tried to be quite honest and open in this document. We did have technical issues, which this system is being administered through an RPW payment system. And if you look at the experience of working with the RPW system, it isn't a very pleasurable mechanism to work with. It's very bureaucratic. It's faceless. Everything is sent into one portal. There are a lot of problems with timings of decisions and payments, timetables. Things have to fit exactly into the description given or they won't pay. And it did worry us. We raised these problems immediately after Christmas when we saw the mechanism that they were offering. And fair play to Tom Cosson specifically, he's worked very hard on this. On the RPW, there's not much flexibility. If the computer says no, it's no. But he has worked miracles. RPW has come back to us in the last week or on Friday, I heard on Friday, and they've moved on the action points that we raised with them. Because we could have been in a situation where we'd have triple or quadruple audit, so who was checking, you know, not very effective manner really, but all the points that we raised were presented and we received a positive response on 95% of them. And that was one thing I was like, you know, it wasn't a deal breaker, the thing that they didn't come back to. We can work around it. I think we're in a very positive situation now, so that we can say that, yes, we support the program. It's reached the point really where if there wasn't any movement, you know, we discussed it with the CEO that, you know, we would have possibly have said that we need to wait for a year to make sure that everything's out because of the financial risk and think that because things weren't clear and the feeling that we felt we were being pushed into to make a decision too quickly. But I think we received all the answers that we were looking for. And I think that we can move forward on it, which is brilliant. The only thing I'd like to draw your attention to, there's a slight risk here specifically to the authorities' good name, really. The levels of expenditure of £500,000 to be done within a year on a brand new plan with staff who more than likely who will more than likely be won't have much experience or will be new to the department. It's quite a bit of money to be spent to promote to gain a foothold and to spend all the money within the required time. And the relation between ourselves and the agriculture community is slightly more clear, really, since the SFS consultation. I think they're far more, there's more persuasion that needs to be done with the sector, especially if we tell them that that's a government project. So there's a risk in that. And the money that we've been asking for a number of years, and the worst thing that can happen is that we turn out at the end and saying that we can't spend it all. I don't want to send everything back to Cardiff, but we'll need to, we'll have to flag it up that possibly there will be possibly that we won't be able to spend it. I'm quite confident in Eryri, but more than Llyn are in new areas, and we need to build up new relationships with landowners, agriculturists, and Gwy. They've got a similar problem as well. On the national level, there are similar risks, but that's the main thing, really. Is that we won't. But that's the main risk, is that we won't be able to spend it all. And doubling the budget in year 2 and 3, it's no full feat. But we've been asking for it for years, so we'll need to make the best of it. So if you have any questions or comments, yes, Elwyn Edwards has his hand up on the screen. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got 2 computers here, so I've got no program. And one keeps on switching off it, and that's in the report entries, and thank you for it. The officers raised concerns about it's the mechanism those are the concerns that they've learned, because it was such a restricted mechanism. It doesn't give you the flexibility there. But yeah, they have moved on this point, and they've given us a way forward, so we'll be able to work within it.
Workable solution.
We have found a workable solution. That's the best way to say it. On the way forward, on the way that we can move forward in a clear manner to keep Sian from finance happy there. But there is a way forward, so we're quite happy with that. It's quite a challenging program because they hope that we'll be asking people to work in partnerships or in groups. And of course, it does happen in some areas of the park as well, but it will be completely new to others. But we have reached an understanding there'll be less pressure on that in the first year, just so that we can get the program up and running and the officers make sure that the officers gain experience. But that has been answered. Thank you very much. Tim. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to say thank you for the presentation, Tris. It was great. And I think your understanding of what's happening is good, great to have. And I feel for you working with RPW. I've done it before, and it's not the easiest one to work with. The computer makes a lot of the decisions. I've got 2 questions. One is, firstly, welcome, because this is our first opportunity for the park to have some inputs and a significant amount of money to work with farmers. This is to be welcomed. In one paragraph, the menu. How much flexibility will there be? Because when things develop and ideas are put forward, there are things that maybe don't fit into the revenue. You've said that things are quite tight. For me, it fits. I think that the success of this is how flexible we can be, really. What will lead to success. Do you want to ask a second question again? The second question is slightly different. It was about the panels. Obviously, how quickly can they make decisions? And how much say do we have as a national park on these panels? That's the main thing. Those are the two questions I had. The menu of options, they're very keen that we follow. The Welsh Government have different grant schemes which are already up and running. Packages like Glasgow Small Grants, Glasgow Efficiency Grants, and the protein crops. There are standard payments which are set out for those already. And this is one of the main dangers the main problems we're going to have. They wanted us to ask these packets. The uptake hasn't been very good on these on the national level because of the bureaucratic systems, etc. So what we said was, if you repackage the same thing, you're going to get the same results. Whether it's the same thing with a different badge, and that was a concern. But they have said it's where if the farmer wants to conduct his own work, that we can try and use the standard cost and the menu of payments and the different options which are there, and that's okay. We were drawn their attention to the fact that the fencing costs on Anglesey are quite different, on Pen Llyn are quite different to doing the same job in Cadair Idris or streets in Rhododendron where there's no water or where you need to walk to different areas. So they have accepted that there are environmental factors, which will mean that standard costs won't work really. So we have been given permission there to use our own purchasing, but using the methodology of why we raise different payments, and that will be sufficient. The RPW has gone from, I don't know if somebody's sulked or whatever, but don't include that in the minutes. They've gone from wanting to manage everything. They've reached the point where, yeah, just send these details and carry on. So I don't know if they expect us to make a mess of things or what, but they've gone from one aspect to complete. It's great for us. Just I hope that things work well. I'm sure that Chance is starting to get quite nervous there.
Bespoke
we get the bespoke cost. We just make sure that we have the full audit process in place. With the panels, the large cost decisions, because there's no ceiling of payments to be made, set for this project. But we are going to set a baseline so that we can allow officers to make decisions up to a certain point. And then if it goes over that point, it will be before a panel. It's made of the agriculture unions, the farmers, one or two NGO organisations, and then Team Rheoli or John will have a role on that. The final decision will remain in John's hands, so the authority has the final decision at this point. I was a bit worried about that, yeah. No, so yes. So the casting, the authority will have the casting vote. The first year, I don't think that will hold many panels, and the applications will be smaller applications, so people will be trying out the system to see what's available, how it works. Are they paid on time, etc.? I don't think the larger applications will come through in year 2 and 3 as people have settled into the jobs and have an opportunity to work with groups and to develop ideas and then get them to move forward. Collaborative working. So we'll be looking at things like common land, working together. Don't, with specific species who are not necessarily side by side, Maybe John, for example, John and Dinas Mother and somebody in Pen Llyn could work together. So the cooperate, they don't have to be next door to each other. They could be scattered through the area. So that would be quite interesting. We can put managing goats and things like that. Maybe they're not the most attractive things today, but we, we'll be able to show cooperation in different manners. There's a huge potential here, and there is emphasis. We need to make sure that we get good officers in place and that we can develop those. Because the exit strategy, when this plan comes to an end, and if the areas want to continue, we'll be in a good place with the staff capacity or more. We'll have more capacity than we have now to be able to put our hands up to administer the SFS, the collaborative layer, and develop this relationship with landowners further. That's the plan. Can I just ask one follow-up question on that? Let's see the simple success in England, the work that's been carried on there. Has RPW taken much notice of how they do things in England, or they just done it their own way? I think they have been pressed upon to change the processes and how they conduct things. But John and Tegrin was very, it's obviously leading things here. I think they've realised the severity of the situation over the past week. We're in a situation where we said we don't want to play ball with this. Just one other thing that we had, I think you noticed that the revenue costs, there's nothing there for the background costs, things like the PPE, IT, software. We've raised that, and the Welsh Government officers has opened the door so that we can put in recommendations of what we see the consumable costs will be, or the overheads. So I'm quite confident that that will be settled as well as we come up to April. There won't be a net cost for the authority.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, thank you for the work in moving this forward, because certainly my experience from over the border is this type of scheme is very popular, but some of the popularity is focused around flexibility. So the fact you're cracking that door open, let's put it that way, and moving in that direction has got to be a good thing. I also think, the point you make about it not being a government scheme, it's beholden on us as an authority to use our good name to promote it and use the positive nature and positive relationships that we have in that respect. And I think that'll be a good way forward. I have one question which I didn't understand, and that is on the allocations in Table 1, where you've got the allocation by land area and the total allocation being different. I just didn't understand how that worked.
From what they've done is they've put in a percentage floor or basic payments, if you like. So, thank you, John. So for the national parks, they've got a 75% floor, and then it drops to 45 for the A and B. So that it was just because if they'd have gone on purely area based, there would be significant losers in that equation, really. Some of the smaller AONBs, and you would question, would it be viable for them to get such a smaller portion, really? So what they've tried to do is to give a base payment, if you like, or a nominal value for each area.
So 75% of the budget has gone by land, and then they've topped that up in some.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you with the exact calculation on it.
Just I wondered why, we've got 230 some odd thousand on area and 360 odd thousand on total allocation, and I just couldn't quite get my head around that.
I'd need to check the exact calculations on it for you, but that's the principle that they've put the floor in.
Yeah. No, that's fine. And I think, the whole principle of the scheme is really good, and certainly it's been well received over the other side. And I think, we can learn from that in the way that we tweak the system to make it work, really.
I think the fact that DEFRA have been quite actively involved and positive in the delivery of FIPL in England has been beneficial in moving RPW as well. That they seen, well, if DEFRA can do it, or or give allowances, then surely the mechanism in Wales should be something similar or on par. Obviously, the budgets are vastly different.
Well, of course they are,
I think
but
the
I mean,
Peak District is getting something like 7 million just for the Peak District. So the volume of work there is phenomenal, really. But it's a small step, really, isn't it?
Well, got to start somewhere, and this is a step forward from where we are, and I think it puts us a very good platform that we can build on and get some good cases out there early and build on those, really.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr, sa rhywun arall?
Okay, anyone else? Thank you. John
John
Pugh. I'm glad to see that DEFRA has awoken finally.
Sounds strange to get over there.
I think the Sophie's a good Mexico.
I just saw what wedi bod picky am gyda'r beithwyr, wrth gwrs, o hwnna'n busnes.
They've been picky with the agriculturists, of course. It wasn't going to work at all before. It was a headache, and they talked about X amount of trees in places that wasn't viable. It's going to work okay in Meirionnydd. The cost of agriculture has increased so much. Lambs, etc., especially in Penllyn, and this might suit Anglesey. We'll be able to do more things and carry on with agriculture with this scheme now. So if we see that the ones in Penllyn are finding it difficult to get rid of certain elements, will it come back to Eryri? If you know, is it ring fenced for Llyn, Anglesey? Are we able to cooperate with each other? A fair enough question. You've seen the allocation, and Eryri is the shark in the pool. The shark is circulating pretty often to look for money, to be fair. It has been allocated in those areas, but our understanding as a family. The understanding is that we're all operating as a big family, ending it. So we've come to understanding when we reach say Christmas every year, everybody will have to make a statement to say how much have you allocated and how much have you spent. Is there a risk of underspend? And what's the capacity to be able to move it on, depending how much movement we need, but we can shift significant sized blocks, if so to speak. Hopefully we can tap into other areas and spend. This is a Llan Farm scheme. Parts farm. You won't be able. This will be very attractive, especially in areas where agriculture is more intense. Penllyn, Mourne, Pembrokeshire, lots of improved land, so that will be very helpful. And it will be very helpful for people to be able to start a relationship with the landscape in Eryri. We're lucky that we have a long history of working in that way, but in other areas, so the relationship will need to be nurtured. Parts of it will be difficult, Llyn, Mourne and Gower, because they're so linear in their nature. The area of natural beauty, say, or the area of beauty isn't all that wide. So how many options can you have in one length of field? Perhaps, say, sacrificial crops or access paths. The expenditure is going to be more limited, and it will be more difficult to shift if there's a requirement for cooperation. If you're that linear, and there is no flexibility to go over the boundary here. Is that, well, we've built in a buffer with this. I spoke to John Tegrin last week. We had quite a constructive meeting on Friday. It's very fluid at the moment. So we're building buffers into it. It won't be huge, about half a kilometre if we're lucky, but it's for the farms where the main element is with it out of the park, say. The species don't actually respect up, obviously. So if we need to do something, the width of a field away, well, there is obviously flexibility. Yes, there may be others that are much more dense and much smaller, so the money that they'll get, well, FIPL provides grants for renewable energy. Unfortunately, we're not getting that in Wales, but perhaps if we still keep on banging on that door, it's something that we will be able to do. And if we can show how that we are spending this successfully and well, then we can play for additions. DEFRA developed FIPL, they saw that it was effective, and so they've put listed building monies into it and access, and this is the mechanism that they're using in the parks and the AONBs in England, and it's increased the budget or inflated the budget. I would be more concerned with renewable energy. It's all well and good being able to produce the energy, but generating the energy, say, but it's actually exporting it out, because you may be dependent on, say, hydro, but getting it out there, you may to make sure that the infrastructure is there. And that's pretty important if you are going to go down that route. Okay, thank you, John. Anyone else? Okay, you can see the recommendation there to note the content and approve officers' continued development of the programme for use in Eryri. Proposal? And Einir? Tim, seconded. Show of hands, please.
No.
Thank you. Thanks, Rhys. If you'll excuse me, I'll leave now. As in, please. Item 10, Dewi Morgan. Will tell us if we can afford anything. Perhaps I'd better stay. Please, that is. Okay. Thank you, Chair. In the authorities meeting in February, what we have in front of you today is the budget for the next financial year. I'll run through the report quickly just to explain some of the points which might assist you as members to make a decision at the end. What we're looking for are two things, which is to approve the budget for next year and to formally note and agree on the levies to charge the local authorities. As you can see on page 18, the good news is that the government has increased the core grant of the authority for the first time in quite a few years, and it's an increase of 5%, but because of legislative requirements, the levy that is charged is also increased by the same amount. As you can see in 2.1, that means an increase of 206,000 in the core funding. Excuse me. This is good news, but despite that, I'll just draw your attention. The authority is continuing to look at a deficit in the foundation of 635,850. Just to assure you, this doesn't mean that the authority is going to become bankrupt in the next year. It doesn't mean we're not talking about section 114 notice where I have to present a report to say that we can't afford to fund the deficits. There are reserves to fund it, but I'll explain the difference between this deficit and using the reserves to bridge that gap. Specific reserves for this purpose, that is. What you have is, if we just look at part 3 of the report, the
in Appendix 1, for example, which is and that is on page 22. This is the basic way of building budgets in local authorities. The incremental method. Well, we look at the last year's budget, look at the differences in expenditure and income, and that provides us with the basic budget for the new financial year. You can see in Appendix 1 that the basic budget has increased from 7.2 million to over 8.2 million, which is that basic increase. And what that is based on new capital projects that is funded from grants or specific reserves. And they account for over 900,000. If you just to jump back to the report itself, what you have in appendices 2, 3, and 4 is the same information, really. That is how we build up that budget and how it's set out in a different way. Appendix 2 demonstrates who makes the expenditure and which units are spent, planning, for example, corporate, etc. And the Appendix 3 provides you with the same information, but on the basis of where the money is being spent. The Appendix 2 says who spent, and Appendix 3 tells you who's spending. And then Appendix 4 is in even more detail. So I'm jumping forwards and backwards and forwards through these appendices at the moment. Anyway, in relation to the increase, if I were also to mention part 4 of the report, there is a capital budget that we're also asking you as well as the revenue budget to agree on the capital budget of 1.44 million. And as you can see on page 19 of the report, that 800,000 comes from Welsh Government capital grants, 400,000 from other grants, and an increase of just 250,000 from the authority's baseline and specific reserves. Like I said before, I referred to the deficit of over 600,000, 635 in fact. There are 2 types of uses of reserves being referred to in this report, which is, and what's in part 5 is the use that has been planned from the reserves, which is money that's already been received and set aside in order to be used in the future. And it's then there to be used by you this year. And the details of those are in the appendices. These are the specific reserves that have been planned to be used. Basically, you have a 457,000 in the revenue and 47 for capital spend. And there's further information on that on page or in appendices 6 and 7. The deficit of 635,000 is also financed from reserves. The money is there to fund this next year. It's use that we hadn't intended to do. We have to do it because we can't set a balanced budget without it. This isn't a balanced budget in the sense that there is more expenditure than there is income. And of course, we have to use reserves in order to bridge the gap. But it is a legal budget. I can assure you of that as your statutory finance officer. One thing I would draw your attention to with the levy on local authorities, I'll draw your attention to page 20. There is one small mistake. Just to draw your attention to that in the Welsh version, in fact. In the total levies, it says 1 million odd, and that's the total. You have the levy for Gwynedd Council, which is 1,111,732. It doesn't add to 8 to 3 to 37. It's just that the figure that's been carried over is a little bit wrong, but the figure does balance. So on 6.4, on page 20, we have a basic summary there for you to consider the budget where we're actually funding the expenditure for next year. 4.3 million comes from the government grant. 1.4 million comes from the levies on other local authorities. Just $500,000 comes from reserves that had been intended for the use in 2026, and the grant of 1.3 million, and a deficit of 635,000. Once again, we're using reserves to close that gap, but the money is there to bridge the gap. So on to the recommendations on the top of page 21. To remind you of what we're asking you to agree today, which is to approve the revenue and capital budgets for the authority for 2025-2026, as you can see in the appendices. And the second one is to approve the levies on the billing authorities as stated in part 6.3 above. So I'm very happy to accept any questions from you. Thank you. I do have one. Does what's happening in Cardiff affect this? It's been approved in the sense that the first phase of the process has been approved. But one didn't vote, did they? Or refrained their vote. So that was tough. We're still waiting information on the 20th or 21st of February, what the final budget will be.
Joe?
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Am I correct in thinking that the Pen-y-Pass barrier maintenance and the income completely counted, blank each other out? There's no profit there. Is that something that's going to change, or have I just misread that?
Yes, no, that is correct. It's actually a correction because the barrier was approved a couple of years ago. It's been in use for a while now, but yeah, it was accidentally taken out and then it's been reintroduced. And to meet that extra expenditure, we've increased the income targets for that, so there won't be any extra profits from that increase in targets of Pen-y-Pass.
So moving forward, will eventually there be a profit? Because obviously there's going to be other maintenance of the car park. So are the profits going to? Are there going to be profits?
In terms of running the system rather than maintenance in terms of,
Dydy'r barriers yn Pen-y-Pass ddim yn iawn eto.
I can come there. The barriers in Pen-y-Pass have not been installed yet. We're still in discussion with Baron Hill Estates, but we are looking at a different system, an NPR system. But no final decision has been made on that yet. So it's a bit frustrating that we haven't been able to install the system, and in the meantime we've been spending more on companies to ensure that the system that we have in place is operational. The BPAC system that we have in place means that we have to have people there to ensure that the vehicles don't breach the car park where they haven't paid. So there has been additional cost in relation to that. We are trying to work out a full solution. Once that solution will in place, we will be getting more profit from that into the site. Quickly on that, Joe.
Yeah,
I will be bringing in an income strategy through the authority to deal with the financial challenge, and that will look at the income of the car parks, including Pen-y-Pass. So there will be further detail in front of this committee pretty soon. Anyone else? Brian?
Thank you, Chairman. You've answered one of my questions, which was to do with the Pen-y-Pass barrier. The other one is to do with Plas Tanner Book. I mean, the document is very clear, and I appreciate the clarity of it. But the figures in Appendix 4 on Plas Tanner Book raise the question of what the 272,000 of sales fees and grant income was, and the overall size of the budget for the building of 802. I'd just like a little more clarity on how those figures work, bearing in mind the fact that Plas Tanner Book is not quite mothballed, but nearly.
Yes, we've left. Dan ni 'di gadael cyllideb Plas Tanner Book fel ag yr oedd hi.
We've left the Plas Tanner Book budget as it was. Things have changed recently in relation to the use, but we've left that as is. It does include the capital costs, the depreciation. But that's what brings it to 802. 500 odd was the expenditure and the income. We've left it at that so that we have that figure in reserve in the specific risks reserve. We haven't adapted that a lot because there's going to be significant costs we foresee in relation to the maintenance of the building.
So the 272 is based on last year's budget, is that right? Yeah.
Ti'n dod ar ryw adroddiad efo Craig Cwmton.
So you said that you're going to put forward a report on creating income. There are lots of things that we could create income on, and we're not at the moment. Are you looking at everything or just the car parks at the moment? We're looking at everything, but it will be concentrating on the big strategic things initially. But that will be presented to you in the next few months. We'll go to the recommendation then. Do we have a proposal? Do we have a seconder? Seconded by and a show of hands. Are we still with Dewi Morgan? This is the capital strategy. The authority has to look at capital strategy, as you can see on page 29 of the package. There are other matters that have been included, such as not just the capital expenditure on firings, but treasury management, commercial activities, and the implications of that on the budget as well. So there's quite a lot of detail here. And there are technical matters, like I said, that you need to consider as a part of the package. I've just approved the capital budget for 25-26, and the intention with 2.2 is to have capital expenditure of 1.443 million in 2025-2026, and as you can see in the foreseeable expenditure and the true expenditure of 2-something million. And we can see in presenting the capital budget, we're looking at future years as well. So there are forecasts as well for the capital budgets. and 976 million in 2027, 2028. The reason why I brought this strategy in front of you today, the capital strategy, that is so that we can plan ahead where we're going to fund these plans, what we're going to do with the money that we have, and if there's a requirement for you to borrow. As in reality, the strategy doesn't foresee the need to borrow for the period of the strategy. Like I mentioned, when I presented you the previous report, there were reserves there that we have to fund the capital plans for next year. And as noted in paragraph 2.5 at the bottom of page 30, in financing capital expenditure, the choices is to get it from external sources, grants, etc., use our own assets, reserves, etc., or borrowing. Those are the three options, and we foresee that it's the first two that we'll be using. We won't need to borrow. Having said that, a part of the treasury management work means that we have to consider what if we have to borrow. It's totally as a situation of scenarios at the moment, but we need to set those boundaries for ourselves, and that's what we have in part 3 of the report, which is treasury management, how we use the reserves to meet our expenditure requirements. But if we had to borrow, how much would that be? And one of the recommendations is that we set a boundary on how much we would borrow if we had to, but there is no intention, like I said, to borrow at all. I don't intend to go through the report in detail. It's there for you. Lots of them are technical matters. So I just move to the recommendations on page 36, really, of the report. To note that there is no intention to borrow monies for capital purposes, but we have to set limitations if we were to require to do so on a prudence level, and that we don't change the levels that we have at the moment, 500,000 for 2025-2026, and an operational boundary of 100,000, and no limit on the proportion of interest payable at a variable rate. 9.3 is that we require to adopt the capital borrowing strategy for 25-26 as outlined in paragraph 3.3 of the report, and notes the content relating to the Prudential Code as noted in paragraphs 2.2, 3.3 and 7.1 of the report. And I'll leave it there. And I think it's better for me to just respond to any questions that you have. Any questions?
Just
one quick thing, Dewi. I take it that if we got into the situation where the PAC was thinking about borrowing money, this would be presented back to the authority before anything is done with it. I just feel that I have to ask that question. But yes, of course, yeah, because that would mean the change. You know, we'd have to do it, and then financially it would be a significant change in the budget that you've just accepted. You know, set the capital grants with the grants and using the reserves. So having to borrow in the next financial year would mean a significant change, and it would definitely be something you need to discuss as authority. Thank you. Everyone else happy? What do you want to do? Do you want to present them all in one package, or do you want to approve them point by point? If you don't have anything specific there that you're not happy with, I'd be happy for you to take them all together. Do you like to? Yeah, take them all together. John has proposed to take them all, and Anwen has seconded. Can you have a show of hands, please? And that has been carried. Okay. Thank you, Dewi. We'll move on now to number 12, Performance and Resources Committee minutes. To present the minutes, which was held on the 27th of November 2024 for information. Everyone happy with that? And then 13, same with the members' working group report, which was held on the 4th of December. You've all received a copy of the report. Everyone happy? Okay. And then come to number 14, the last item on the authority meeting. The meetings of other organisations. Anybody represented the PAC on any external committees? No one? Okay. So thank you very much. That's the end of this meeting. Thank you.
Jyst i gael ar gyfer, mae gen ni sesiwn hyfforddi, dwi'n gwybod chi ar gweithio cynllunio yn barod, ond mae rhaid ni fynd trwy'r broses hyfforddi. Sydd chi